Hello again, everyone. Today's video, I'm going to take off my what is best for the Republican Party and put on my hat that says Bobby Crawford, what is best for the city of Greensboro, North Carolina. And back last Tuesday night, a few nights ago, I decided to attend a meeting with an organization called Plan It. Not planet like space, but the word plan it and then it combined together into one word. Well, not really a word, but you know what, phrase or whatever. Plan It, GSO, the abbreviation for Greensboro. And this was actually the last session that they were having. They were doing these community cafes throughout the month of October, November, and just based on my work schedule and everything, I was just not able to attend any others. And the one closest to my home, I was not able to attend that one either, at the Leonard Recreation Center off of Ballinger Road. I think that's how you pronounce it, Ballinger or something. But no, this one was on the east side of Greensboro, and fortunately I arrived safely at the Smith Senior Center, and I got home in my home in the northwest part of Greensboro just fine, because East Greensboro, it just does not have a very good reputation. 90% of the crimes that you hear about in Greensboro are on the east side, and a lot of poverty over there, so forth. But I wanted to attend at least one of these events, and my work schedule finally worked out, and I was able to attend. And basically what this event was, it's about the comprehensive plan for 2040. Most cities in the country, they adopt every 5-10 years. Well, actually, the last plan was adopted in 2003 for 2025. So sometimes every 15 years, your city will do what's called a comprehensive plan. Of course, they always get input from the public. This particular Plan It GSO initiative was in a community cafe setting. They had 6 different tables with 6 different concepts. The concepts were community, neighborhoods, identity and experience, economic prosperity, connections, and built environments. And what happened on Tuesday evening was we had about a 10-15 minute presentation, which I'm going to go over in a little bit. And then the people that were there, including yours truly, started at a table. And we were told to start off with the table where we had our big idea. And then there were 6 tables with 6 different concepts, and the purpose was to go to 3 tables spend about 15-20 minutes at each table, and this whole event was about an hour 15 minutes. And then, of course, it says ground rules: all ideas are welcome, use your indoor voices, no shush kebab Sherlock, one person speaks at a time, of course, and focus on content. But the presentation that night, so we started off, we had Goldie Walls, District 2 City Council member, was in attendance. And any event I go to, I always try to acknowledge the elected officials, because part of my evaluation for evaluating elected officials and whether or not I want to vote for them first time or again if they're up for re-election is I always look at their attendance and how active in the community, as well as their respective political parties are they active, as part of my evaluation at election time. Okay. But of course, just mentioned the last plan was adopted in 2003, called Connections 2025. This one will have is supposed to be adopted sometime by the end of 2019. And it's going to have a date of 2040, looking out at 2040. But some things from the 2003 plan that were active is a program called Neighbor Woods, which is a tree planting program. And some goals from the 2003 plan were a broad community and to have a diverse population, as well as recognized rate of change as far as population growth, and various development around the city, and that sort of thing, and as well as decisions that are being made on the city government, but also in the private sector. What companies and industries are coming to Greensboro, but also which ones are leaving as well. This current plan, its GSO initiative, started in last year in 2017. And what happened was basically this was an inventory analysis. Proposed goals were drafted from over 500 resident and stakeholder responses to questions asked online and in person in 2017. One of the questions asked was, what is GSO right now, but the feedback tonight is really at the meeting back on Tuesday was about, is Greensboro headed in the right direction? But a lot of the information that was extracted from 2017 was on an advisory committee, and there was 22 boards and commissions that were all volunteer. But some interesting facts that the presenter made, and this is based on looking at a snapshot from 2005 to 2017. But did you know this? 67% of the households in Greensboro have only one or two people. That's a little hard to believe. Well, yes and no. I mean, we're not like an old. We don't have a huge elderly population like Florida, or like even like Asheville area, or Brunswick County, North Carolina, or Pinehurst area, North Carolina, or New Bern, or the Outer Banks area. But we're not as young and hip, I guess, as Raleigh or Charlotte either. But that's interesting. But that shows us maybe that there's more millennials and more, current Generation Z people. Those are the ones who are like high school and college age right now. You're 15 to 25-year-olds, I guess you'd say, who are maybe sticking around in Greensboro, whereas maybe if you go back, say, 15, 20 years ago, they were going to Raleigh or Charlotte, but now they're sticking around. Maybe that's a good sign that we're getting younger, even though the data says that in 2005, the median age, the average age of a resident of Greensboro was 33, but now that's up to 35.3. Okay, and that is despite the fact that we have 11 colleges and universities in the city of Greensboro. Manufacturing jobs went down by 4%. But service jobs went up by 5%. The reduction in manufacturing jobs is not too surprising, because you had a lot of companies leave, not just Greensboro, but the whole United States of America, because of the Great Recession and the whole jobs going overseas and that sort of thing, as well as the fallout from NAFTA, which was adopted in the mid-90s. too, as well as the collapse of the textile industry and the furniture industry and those sort of things would be under the manufacturing umbrella. Diversity in Greensboro has the non-white population has grown by 7.5% over the last 13 years, while the state has only 3% more diverse, but that is still higher than the average for the country. The average for the USA is only 2%, and that's a little hard to believe, because we keep hearing, really ever since the 2012 election, or even you could probably even go back to 2008 election, about how the electorate is getting a lot less white and a lot more Hispanics, and that's Asians, and a lot less white. And people are talking about how that was a big positive factor for the election of Barack Obama in 2008 and also 2012. But if we look at, obviously, not to get off not to veer too much off the tracks here from our topic at hand, but when you look at 2016, we can see that, okay, the country, the electorate is still very white, and there's still enough, and that is still a good factor for the Republicans, but not so much for the Democrats too. And we still don't really know about 2018, because really, when you look at an election cycle, you really have to maybe go about 2 to 3 election cycles after, before you really see the legacy of that election cycle. But right now in America, it's really the cities are getting more diverse, whereas the rural areas are not. And the rural areas are getting more Republican, but the cities are getting more Democratic. So that's sort of what we have playing out right now. And for the Republicans, they're losing the suburbs, but the Democrats are gaining the suburbs. So, okay, that's enough talk on political demographics. Back to our Greensboro talk. Population growth. Greensboro, like a lot of cities in North Carolina, has grown, not to the extent of Raleigh and Charlotte. Some people think it's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, because you want to have some growth, but it does not want to be so red hot to where you have out of control development as well as out of control traffic congestion, which is what you have in Raleigh and Charlotte, and even more so in Florida too. It's a big problem, huge problem in Florida, probably 10 times as much as the worst parts of North Carolina. But Greensboro has grown by 61,000 residents since 2005, and that is what was said equivalent to the population of Chapel Hill. So that is still fairly, what's the word I'm looking here? Fairly significant growth. Not red hot, not runaway, but fairly significant. Okay, now another thing that was asked in the 2017 survey was, what makes Greensboro special? Arts and culture, as well as parks and green space, and sense of community. And then there's the whole small enough to be sort of have that close identity, but big enough to expand your horizons. What needs to change in Greensboro? More bike trails and sidewalks, as well as economic development needs to change, because of course the problem has been really for a while, probably going back 20-30 years now, is that a lot of jobs, when a lot of companies, when they relocate from high tax hellholes like New York or Massachusetts and they come to North Carolina, they're still going to Charlotte and Raleigh, and they're ignoring Greensboro. So that's obviously why economic development was on the what needs to change part. And then we talk about equity in housing. The median household income in Greensboro is relatively low, but you also have this East Greensboro versus West Greensboro, where you have, of course, east part of Greensboro is very poor, very poverty stricken. But the west part of and people are off during the day and they're on welfare, not working. But the west part of Greensboro, you have very nice housing. East part of Greensboro very run down, but the west part of Greensboro, people have jobs, good paying jobs, I should say, that are keeping them away from buying the run down properties and keeping them out of poverty. Now, what should Greensboro's legacy be 20 years from now? Well, again, some of this is repeat, but arts, culture, diversity, and eco-friendly. Okay, and then, so I went to 3 different concept tables, I will call them. I went to Connections, where fortunately there was 2 other people there, so we had a pretty good discussion. Then the other 2, I was the only one there, so I was like, oh geez. But let me talk about the one that was the most productive of the night. That was the first one, that being Connections. And in 20 years, this is how we will describe the roads and green spaces that connect people and places. One of the concerns of the group that I was with was accessibility of public transportation. There were 2 other people at the table. They were both college students at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, also known as UNCG. And they were both talking about public transportation, how it's a lot easier to get around Charlotte, and a lot of other, cities, even Raleigh, a little easier to get around with public transportation. And one of the girls mentioned that public transportation should be free in 24 hours. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this girl needs a little bit more economic education. Yeah. And then there was let's see. And that was under there were bullet points on this pamphlet thing here. The whole accessibility of public transportation, that was under the point A, which is Greensboro's walk-in, bike-in transit and road networks provide safe, comfortable, and convenient choices for access to jobs and services. Okay. Next bullet point was, our connected parks and open spaces provide recreation and transportation options, access to nature and the outdoors, and protect the environment. Concern from the 2 young ladies was, shouldn't that protect the environment be a whole separate bullet point? And there was also the question of, how can we today still protect the environment 20 years out? Okay, so then bullet point C. This was the one that was the most talked about in this this particular concept. Our roads and green spaces are visually pleasing, easy to use and navigate, connect communities and people, and create a safe and welcoming environment for those traveling within Greensboro. One of the things, I guess, goals, and this was actually from, at each table you had this facilitator who would read the bullet points and guide the discussion of the group. But you also had the scribe, aka the secretary, the person writing everything down that was being discussed in the group. The scribe is the head arborer for the city of Greensboro. And he had a really great idea about how Greensboro should be looking at connecting having a park and making the parks more linear. And basically, you can start walking or biking in one park, and then and keep going and end up in a whole nother park. And also use these, connect in the parks, but also connect in the there's 11 colleges within the city of Greensboro, connecting all the colleges together via paved trails and greenways, as well as these parks. But he also said the downtown greenway was a good start with this, and hopefully over the next 20 years Greensboro will be able to expand on it. But another concern that the whole group agreed on was roads and green spaces are visually pleasing. That one should really be broken up. And I mentioned that when you think of a road, you think of something you drive on, just especially in an urban, suburban setting, what Greensboro is. It's just a road that you drive on to go from point A to point B. It could be go from home to work, or home to restaurant, home to bowling, or home to church and back, whatever. But it's just something that you drive on, use to get to point A to point B. You really don't think of a road as being visually pleasing, especially when you drive on, say, Market Street with all the businesses and signage that you see, all the clutter, as well as Wendover Avenue too, all the stoplights and the clutter and all the businesses and the sprawl and the signs. It's roads that are visually pleasing. As far as North Carolina, I think about NC Route 12 out in the Outer Banks, not in Kitty Hawk or Nag's Head, but more as you go through Hatteras Island and Rodanth and that sort of thing. And also the Blue Ridge Parkway out in the west part of the state when you're going through the Blue Ridge and Smoky Mountains. But one point that the facilitator made is that Bryan Boulevard has a lot of trees on it, and this time of year, and even back in October still fortunately this time of year, the trees have red, orange leaves that are beautiful to look at. And Bryan Boulevard is an expressway. It's not a road like Wendover from I-40 south is a lot of traffic lights and businesses and sprawl. But from downtown to about I-40, it's more of an urban expressway. But yeah, Bryan Boulevard is an expressway. It's very suburban. Even a little bit fairly rural with all the trees that are on it, too. Okay. So, and by the way, this first one was where we were supposed to do our big idea. And my big idea was that we need more connectivity with the paved trails. Need to fill in the gaps and make crossing busy intersections more pedestrian friendly. Because one of the first trails that I did in my short 5 months of living in Greensboro was the Bicentennial Trail. And there are parts of this trail that are very good and easy to navigate, like right around the bowling or recreation center. But there are also parts of the trail from, like, say, Battleground Avenue and Horse Pen Church Road that are very broken up, hard to navigate, and then there's some parts of them that have the busy intersections that are very, hard to get across, because you're just relying on a don't walk signal, and you're really expecting drivers to obey the signals when a lot of times they don't. Whereas there's actually a pedestrian underpass that goes under Cone Boulevard on the Atlantic and Yadkin Greenway that is really good. But then again, there are parts of the Atlantic Yadkin Greenway where you have to go on Battleground Boulevard and Pisgah Church Road, and that are not very pedestrian friendly. So if the city of Greensboro really wants to continue to have these paved trails and these greenways be a focal point for recreation, in the city, then they really need to improve them and make them more pedestrian friendly. So that was my big idea. Let's see. What else did I want to... Okay. So the other two, I went to built environment. And the main goal of this is how we will describe Greensboro's land use and development patterns. I'm not going to read all the bullet points because a lot of it is what you would read if you were in the city planning department of Walla Walla, Washington, or Akron, Ohio, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, or any town USA. Pretty much would. A lot of these will be very commonplace. So I'm just going to read to you the bullet points that are the most interesting, that stand out to me. It says Greensboro has sufficient land in suitable locations well connected to the nation's transportation network for a wide range of industrial uses. This one is huge for Greensboro. Probably within about a 2-minute drive from my house, you have the FedEx hub, which is a huge building, like, I don't know, at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 football fields big. Is a huge shipping hub all across the southeastern United States. But and it's expanded. They just recently announced they're creating like over 500 new jobs too, even though the hub's been there for like 10 years. And then Publix is going to create 1,000 jobs by building a distribution center out in the east part of the city. But the FedEx hub is located right at Bryan Boulevard, which is an expressway that goes from Oak Ridge into downtown Greensboro. But it's right there also, right off the urban loop, I-840, which should be completed in the segment that FedEx is off of was completed about 10 years ago, but the whole loop should be done by 2021 is what I'm hearing. And the portion of the urban loop where Publix was just completed last year. And I think back in September was when they announced that Publix was going to build the distribution center. And I think that's going to be built by 2021, I believe. So built environment, let's see. Then I went to identity and experience. And this one and the last one, I was just the only one there. So it was kind of boring, but these things, the one criticism of this event I have is these community cafes work when people actually attend. And if you're like the only one at the table, it really stinks. Whereas if you were given more of a, if the presentation was more comprehensive and longer, like an hour instead of 10-15 minutes, then you would be able to maybe... Some people, including you truly, we're a little shy and introverted. We prefer the bigger, longer meeting, versus the community cafe, in my opinion. But identity and experience in 20 years, this is how we will describe the culture, arts, and places that make Greensboro a unique and memorable place. A lot of that talks about museums, libraries, festivals, events, higher education, neighborhoods. Okay, another point, I did not go to this one, was economic prosperity, because I hear every single day about economic development. It's like, let's go to something a little different tonight. This is how we will describe our equal opportunity to succeed. The one bullet point that stood out to me here was our heritage as the gate city and our strategic location enable us to thrive as a hub of transportation and industry. I just talked about that really with Publix and FedEx being here. Let's see. Neighborhoods, this is how we describe where we call home. There's a bunch of bullet points about having access to shopping, parks, schools, and community facilities, affordable housing, well-maintained and safe, the strong mix of cultures ethnicities and ages. Okay, community. This is, in 20 years, this is how we will describe our quality of life and our connections to each other. There were 2 bullet points here that stood out to me. Greensboro honors its role in the civil rights movement and celebrates the diversity of its population through activism and inclusion. And bullet point number 2, residents strengthen the fabric of the city through participation in civic activities. Boy, I'm taking off my Greensboro hat, put back on my political activist hat, say, yes, we do need more participation in civic activities. Absolutely. Okay. So, let me just wrap up this whole video here and tell you that if you want more information about city planning, and who does? Me. You can go do a Google search on City of Greensboro, North Carolina. And then you're going to hit the Departments tab at the top of the page. And then you're going to, once you hit the Departments tab, you're going to see a menu pop up, and you're going to hit the Planning tab on the tab. And then you're going to scroll to Plan It GSO. And on that's going to take you the plan website, and then you're going to scroll on the left to Plan It GSO. But on there, you're going to have a copy of the comprehensive plan, and you're also going to have a report from the National Association of Realtors, as well as data, and then a conditions and trends report. But finally, my favorite thing about the Plan It GSO website was that they have had a speaker series over the last couple of years. Now, of course, I've only been here 5 months, so I've missed a lot of the speaker series, but they have posted videos of this speaker series, I think, talking about, one was talking about affordable housing, another was talking about parks. They even had the former governor of Maryland, Paris Glendening, talking about smart growth, which I'm not a big Glendening fan, but one of the things that I actually kind of agree with him on, believe it or not, because he's a Democrat and I'm a Republican, is smart growth. I have not watched the Paris Glendening piece yet, but I will soon. Maybe I'll do another video analysis of these speaker series videos. We'll see. But for now, I will say, for the Conservative Pelican, I am Bobby Crawford. Thanks for watching.